This is Kinda Murdery Season 1, Ghost Towns of the Mojave Desert, presented by Criminal Content.
You're rocketing down the 15 freeway between Vegas and LA. It's a scorched wasteland of airstream meth labs and unrelenting heat. This is no place you'd want to stop. But the car's on fumes, so you take the exit and you pull up to the gas station. It's abandoned, a concrete canvas that some local Michelangelos turned into the Sistine Chapel of spray paint penis. A grave marker for every crazy story lost in the desert sands. These are the ghost towns of the Mojave Desert. And this is Kinda Murdery. Hey everybody, and welcome to Kinda Murdery Season 1, Ghost Towns of the Mojave Desert. I'm your host, Zevon Odelberg. Thanks for deciding to be here. So today, we're going to be talking about the disappeared ghost town of Bagdad, California. And when I say disappeared, I mean literally. Bagdad was located about 72 miles east of Barstow on Route 66. But if you go to that cracked earth site where the town once stood today, there's nothing there. Nothing but a solitary tree. And that tree is a tamarisk or salt cedar, the biblical tree presumed to have been planted by Abraham to memorialize his covenant with God.
The Bible said Abraham believed God.
Why are salt cedars used for memorials? Because they are guaranteed to survive when nothing else will. How do they guarantee that survival? Well, it's a vicious, predatory tree that robs all the water from the surrounding land and thereby ensures the death of all other plant life. In other words, that's a kind of murdery tree, which is fitting because the vanished, now exorcised ghost of Bagdad, that town had a near 100-year history of being kind of murdery, pretty darn murdery, and abso-fucking-lutely murdery as shit. Well, that's where we're headed today, folks. Hey everybody, and welcome to Kinda Murdery. I'm your host, Zevon Odelberg. Thanks for deciding to spend your time with us. I'm joined here today by on-air producer Adam Volrich. Hey Adam, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I think this week I'm going to be the Watson to your homes. How about that?
Cool. So if I need any free medical advice or somebody to follow me around carrying a handgun, I turn to you. That's what I take away from that.
Absolutely. My incredibly neurotic Jewish genes make me ideal for both of those activities.
Wonderful. And I'm also joined by Sean Christensen from Criminal Content. How's it doing? Yeah, how's it doing there, Sean?
It's doing well.
All right. And last, but definitely most, I am joined by writer, director, cult horror movie icon. That's right, I'm talking about the one, the only, Chris Peckover. Hey, Chris, thanks for being here today.
Hey, Zevon. Good to see you.
It's better to see you, buddy. It's better to see you. So, anything cool happening for you on the creative front lately?
Yeah, and anyone who knows the horror community and horror movies knows the work of Christopher Landon, who
I'll say
wrote and directed the Happy Death Day movies, and his movie Freaky's about to come out, and I am very pleased and excited to say that I am in cahoots with them. We're working on at least one project, potentially two, depending on how the next week or two goes.
Amazing.
Awesome.
He's a very cool. He's going to be producing a lot of movies soon. I feel like he's got so many ideas that he doesn't have time enough to shoot them all. So he kind of finds filmmakers that he likes and wants to see more of, and I got very happily tapped for that.
Amazing.
So, wow, is kind of like how Rembrandt used to have his students paint some of his most famous paintings?
Yes, so I will be taking the credit of Christopher Landon on my future films.
Great. All right, so Taking a quick look at the itinerary here, it's clear that Baghdad has plenty of attractions for murder tourists like us. We're going to kick it off with a story I like to call Dad, Junior, and the 4 Passengers of the Apocalypse. And then it's on to the Coyote Murder Gang, and finally, the Murder Car, or Friday the 13th is for killers, or can't work, must kill. So there's the itinerary, and now we're going to make this, you know those Choose Your Own Adventure books, guys? You ever read those as a kid? You're like, I'm Han Solo, and I hope to not get blown up by the Death Star. Oh, just did. That whole thing? Yeah.
Wait, are you going to make me choose?
Yeah, I'm... yes. Now that sounds like a horror... Choose.
I definitely want to hear the train story first.
All right. You got it. The year's 1917. A 52-year-old father and his son leap from a speeding train outside of Baghdad, get up, and sprint into the desert under the noonday sun, and would have died of thirst wandering around like delusional Jesus, is that the plural of Jesus? If they had not been saved by a 12-year-old girl. They get rescued and taken to a hospital where they are described as suffering from, quote, delusions of persecution.
Were they stowaways? I'm trying to figure this out. Like, was this train slowing down as it was arriving, or was it like, yeah?
So here's the story. The father on the train with his son suddenly becomes convinced that 4 strangers across the train car, who according to him are acting furtively, are in fact there to murder him and his son. And he says to his son, Junior, we gotta scram. You see those 4 guys over there? They're here to murder us. They're here to murder us. At which point, the son's like, shut up, Dad, you're old and stupid. We don't. They're just like dudes sitting on a train, come on. And the son's like, no, not gonna do it, not gonna jump. But the dad is real insistent. We gotta jump, we gotta jump, we gotta jump. And finally come the outskirts of Baghdad, and maybe this says something about the kind of murdery energy that pulses out of Baghdad like a miniature Chernobyl of horror. But finally, when they hit Baghdad, the son just gets up to speed on Dad's delusion. He's like, you know what, Dad? You know what? I guess you're right. But here's what I think is really hilarious and bizarre about this that I want to hit before we get into more facts. Like, again, I'm presuming a decent father, taking pretty good care of his son up to this point. Running off and jumping from a speeding train, running off into the desert, that's real bad for your health. So what is the deal with these 4 strange passengers? Like, just how murdery are these guys? Like, what are they doing? Are they on their way to MurderCon? Like, are they headed to like a Holiday Inn Express for a weekend seminar called Serial Killers Are Us? Like, are we talking about Vlad the Impaler, Jason, and Jack Kevorkian and Freddy Krueger here? Like, how scary?
Or is it like 4 women like on their way to tea? I can't tell. They had knives. They were like, I have no. Right. What do we know about these 4 people?
They had bloody knitting needles.
I'm picturing like Pinhead and like the other 3 like demons from Hellraiser.
No tears.
Like, that's like the only, like, that's who I would have to see on a train to be like, all right, I have to jump the fuck off right now.
Which is what happened. So yeah, who are these guys and what the hell? And then the second thing that's really funny about this story, and I would preface that by saying, we really ought to leave all the basic survival planning to women. Because, so here's what happens. People see them leap off the train, get up, and take off sprinting into the desert. At which point, they're like, oh shit, like, what's going on with those guys? We better go after them, right? So the local deputies or a posse of well-meaning citizens pursue father and son, and it takes them hours to catch the people. Now, why should we leave all the planning to women? Because there is a 12-year-old girl who works for the general store owner who is the only one who thinks, hey, on this search and rescue into the 110-degree Mojave, chasing after these apparently terrified or just buck insane people, y'all might want to bring some water with you. The 12-year-old girl loads up canteens and gives them to the posse, and the newspaper literally says, but for the foresight of this 12-year-old kid, both the posse and the father and son would have died of thirst.
So in this story, two crazy people jump off a train from four crazy people, get hunted down by a posse of crazy people. Like, it sounds like this is just, we're in a vortex of...
We're in the murder vortex. Once again.
Yes.
Okay.
The desert has all these pockets that are like this.
So they do get them, and they do pour water down their throats until they're no longer, dehydrated, powdered humans. And then they bring them back to the hospital to talk to the doctors, both to treat them for their injuries from leaping from the train and probably to, give them a saline drip or force them to pound an entire jug of Pedialyte like I always do before bed after a hard night of drinking. In other words, like I always do every night before bed. And then the newspaper says, and I found this this is also what made it fascinating to me, is that these guys, when interviewed, were normal in every single way. And their account of their journey was normal in every single way. Yeah, we're from Pittsburgh, California. We're on our way to here. So we're on the train. Everything's cool. And then Dad sees these four passengers of the apocalypse. Who did you say? Pincushion and Pincushion, Tom Green, Carrot Top, and Ted Bundy, or whoever they are. And
sorry, I said Pinhead.
Oh, okay. Right. Pinhead, yes.
Honestly, in Baghdad, I'm sure it's Pincushion.
Thank you, Chris. So, and now we're just moments from being murdered. And at this point, they both start to display this palpable fear, like they're having panic attacks. Back in those days, they had laudanum instead of Xanax, so the doctor was probably funneling laudanum down these people's throats. But if it were these days, he would have been flicking Xanax into their mouths like Pez.
So do we ever get this story straight, like whether they were actually in danger? Because I feel like I either feel sorry for them, like I don't know how to feel about them.
Well, the presumption is that they were not in danger and that they're essentially insane, but only about this. And that's part of what I found so interesting, because they said that it was the professional opinions of the police and the medical staff that these guys were suffering from delusions of persecution, but were otherwise completely normal. So the fact that it was like this highly targeted psychosis, I thought was really, really interesting thing.
I love psychology back then, where it was like, they were overcome by temporary, complete psychosis, and then now they're completely back to normal.
Yeah, right. I also find it so interesting that the son thought Dad was full of shit, like the whole time, and then once he got on board hard. Like he was back in the doctor's office trembling and crapping himself too. So yeah, I think they were just targeted crazy. Although there's another sort of theory, I guess. It's also possible that the father knew exactly who these four guys were.
Right.
Maybe he's not
guilty
crazy.
Of something.
Right. Maybe he's up to his neck in gambling debt or some other kind of nefarious deed, and he knows. And these are like four loan sharks with 6-shooters, and he recognizes them exactly. And he's like, they're here to kill us, son. And the son's like, no, they're not. And he's like, yes, they are, but I can't tell you that it's because I screwed all 4 of their wives at the barn raising last week. So I'm just going to insist that yes, they are, and we got to go. So maybe Dad has a secret. Maybe he did know who they are, and it's not a delusion. He's actually very much going to be persecuted because Dad was up to no good. No good at all. Here are your choices. You got Murder Car, Coyote Murder Gang. Murder Car is also that can't work, must kill, the Friday the 13th story. And then we got the Coyote Murder Gang.
All right, well, let's do the Coyote Murder Gang. That sounds pretty fun.
Coyote Murder Gang it is. All right.
Now, wait, before we get into the story, are we talking about people who kill animals, or that's their name?
Wait, you mean like people who kill coyotes specifically? Yeah. It's funny the way you phrased it originally, because we are not talking about people who kill coyotes. However, this story, in fact, does involve people who kill animals.
Oh, no. But we're going to make it funny.
Yes, we are. I mean, if you can't find a way to laugh at some dead animals, what can't... I don't know, I'm kidding. That's horrible. So it's 1919, and the local sheriff finds a covered wagon crashed over the edge of a ravine. There's 2 sets of footprints, one belonging to a hobnailed woman's boot, another belonging to men's boots. There's some goods recognized as being recently purchased in the town of Bagdad, sort of scattered about the ravine. And then there are 2 dead horses and a dead dog, all 3 of which have been shot in the head execution style.
You weren't kidding about the animals getting hurt.
No, I wasn't.
I have so many questions right now. Wait, a covered wagon in 1912?
1917. Yeah,
the Ford Motor Company, I feel like, is in like full effect at this point, isn't it?
It really is. It is like a 3rd grade Oregon Trail on the Apple IIGS covered wagon we're talking about.
So did they all die of dysentery? Is that why they're not anywhere to be seen?
Well, no, because they were bankers from Boston, and they had a lot of money, so they could afford the medical care. No, that's another reference to the game. It's the farmers who always get fucked.
What is a hobnail?
You think I had time to figure that out? No. I don't know.
I'm thinking it's like just a nail.
It doesn't sound like a Lord of the Rings reference.
I think it's a little. I think it's a little nail that you like pound a bunch of them into the bottom of a shoe to make almost like a cleat for
like a hobnail. Does she need to go to a doctor for this? And then also,
right.
I got a bad case of hobnails. I'm going to the podiatrist.
And the third question is, what does this have to do with the Coyote Murder Gang? You mentioned that before.
Well, I'm so glad you asked. There is purportedly a gang of sort of Black Bart, Jesse James outlaws that have been terrorizing the Arizona border into the Mojave for the last several years, and they are called the Coyote Murder Gang. And so initially, when the sheriff doesn't know what the hell happened here, he goes with, must have been the Coyote Murder Gang. Now, to me, this is kind of like when there's an unexplained flying object in the sky and the government goes, weather balloon. Or like when the whole town of San Francisco is tripping out in the 60s, they're not going to say the army put acid in the water supply. They're like, a gas leak. So I feel like this was the small desert hamlet version of, we don't know what the fuck's going on, so it's the Coyote Murder Gang.
Wait, so Baghdad has never dealt with the Coyote Murder Gang before? Or is this like... definitely.
Well,
I couldn't find my dog, Coyote Murder Gang, or I lost my keys.
It's just the desert boogeyman.
Especially if your dog was like half coyote, then that's almost certainly what happened. Whoa. So they do reference a single person currently incarcerated in San Quentin as being an example of a member of this notorious Coyote Murder Gang. However, spoiler alert, the next story we're going to tell is about this guy, and there's zero evidence that he had a gang or that he was even like tough enough emotionally or otherwise to deal with being a professional criminal. So
did anybody ask the 12-year-old girl? The only reliable source of like truth and information in this town so far.
And basic planning. Yeah. Bringing water with you into the desert. Jiminy Christmas. So I think ascribing things to outlaws, it's easy because they're scary. They were here. Now they're gone. They're hiding in a desert cave somewhere. Like, you don't really have to follow up. But so as to the question of whether the Coyote Murder Gang really exists, it's a great question because I'll tell you this. The local authorities, not the sheriff, but the local, like, county seat of government, the magistrate, whatever they would have called him, something more than a mayor, and I don't know what you call that in the sort of pseudo-Old West, but they put out an official statement denying not only that this was the work of the Coyote Murder Gang, but denying that the Coyote Murder Gang exists at all. They say the Coyote Murder Gang is fake news. Essentially, by denying they exist at all, it makes me think that they absolutely exist, and like somebody's trying to get reelected and doesn't want the local citizenry to shit their pants about the murder gang.
You never saw me.
Exactly. So they say Coyote Murder Gang doesn't exist. Here's what happened. It's really simple. These people crashed their wagon over the ravine. Their horses and their dog were going to die of dehydration, which is a slow, painful death. So they shot him in the head out of empathy and kindness. You don't get to say that very often.
But didn't you say that Baghdad is a place where trains stop for water?
Yes. Well, so they weren't in Baghdad, but they were only a couple miles away.
So like not within walking distance of that?
That leads me to the next thing that happens. After a couple days after this is discovered, flummoxes the sheriff and then is ascribed to the Coyote Murder Gang, an article is published called Space Writers Invent Coyote Murder Gang, where this guy writes an article that's half op-ed. And he says, I believe space writer means these asshole yellow journalists will make up anything to sell a paper. He's calling them space, like a space cadet, or like these spaced out hippies will say whatever. So he lambasts essentially like the liberal media for inventing the Coyote Murder Gang. And he very explicitly says they invented the Coyote Murder Gang with this agenda. They want to make the desert look bad. They want to make the desert seem murdery, when in fact we all know that you're in way more danger of getting robbed and shot walking outside of your house in a big city. First of all, I object. Obviously, we have this show because the desert is pretty much the murderiest place ever. So he's wrong about that. He's got his own agenda.
Yeah, this piece was sponsored by the Desert Tourism Board. There's no question about it.
Exactly. And so here's where it gets really weird in that sort of circular logic, fake news sense. After all this just withering scorn towards these lying journalists and their fake news, and the Coyote Murder Gang and doesn't exist, never did, Black Bart's long dead, Jesse James is long dead, we're safer out here than you are in town, camped in front of the police station. He then says, but this not the Coyote Murder Gang explanation that I just used to heap dump truck loads of elephant shit onto the writers actually holds no water at all.
No pun intended.
Because, to your point, Chris, they were only a couple miles outside of a town that had all the resources that they needed. And on top of that, there was no sign that the horses were dehydrated, that the dog was dehydrated. Also, there was a third horse. I guess they looked at the yoke on the wagon and saw that it was a 3-horse team, or maybe they found the horse. There was a third horse that had been sort of whacked on the ass and sent galloping away like you always see in an old Western. So
like me last night.
You got Yeah. So why did they only shoot 2 horses and not the third? And so he outlines all of these facts of the case for which the lack of a Coyote Murder Gang and simply some people who crashed and needed water doesn't explain the disparities at all. So he basically says, no murder gang, you idiots. This is what really happened, and then follows that up with, but what really happened is no kind of explanation. And doesn't explain any of the things going on here.
Yeah, so far, I feel like you're not giving us many good options here. It's either a gang that doesn't exist, or they didn't want to dehydrate within a couple miles outside of a town. Did they check the animals for like zombieism or something? Like maybe there's another explanation for why they're all shot.
How far outside of Area 51 are we? Could this be an alien thing? Because that's an easy blanket explanation for all kinds of weirdness.
And to that point, they just got so close to the murder vortex, they were like, fuck, we got to kill something. I don't want to kill you. I'm going to kill the livestock.
Yeah, I'm just going to murder some horses real quick, just kind of get my jollies.
It feels like the best explanation for all these stories so far is there's a vortex in Baghdad that makes you either want to endanger your life by jumping off a train or shoot animals for no reason.
Right, because none of these are normal crimes. These are all like pretty fucking absurd. Like at this point, it's like what's the law where it's like the simplest explanation is there is no
Occam's razor.
There isn't one. So at that point, my brain is just like, it's the vortex. That's the only thing left.
Yeah, we're stuck with Occam's shaving cream. It's all over the place, and there's probably still some on your face, but there's no Occam's razor. Yeah, it is. I think you're right, though. I think it's a kind of murdery, psychotic, like oddball, highly specific psychotic break vortex.
I feel like for each of these stories that there's just no clear explanation. We should try to come up with the best explanation ourselves.
I agree. I thought aliens probing horses. I thought I already did that. But if you don't like that one, please shoot. Just kidding. No, we should.
I think Chris's point of potentially having zombie horses that needed to be stopped before they got too close to civilization, that's a pretty good bet.
Yeah, maybe that explains the hobnail boots, too, because I feel like you could maybe kick a zombie really hard in the head with the hobnails and put them down. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Zombie horses, yeah. All right.
I want to say there was like a weird game of Russian roulette going.
Where they put the gun up to their horse's
Their
head.
own horse.
Or maybe it's like that image of the dogs playing poker, but it's the horses around a table with a revolver and one bullet.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if we want to have less fun, maybe the actual rational explanation is maybe two of those horses broke their legs and had to be put down. But then, why do you have to kill the dog?
It's seen too much.
Oh. Oh my God.
I don't know, maybe they were out of food?
Yeah.
But again,
but they were
so
walking
close to
distance,
Baghdad.
yeah.
Or man, it's a mysterious story.
Or like when the dog's like, I'm telling the sheriff about this. You watch me. He's like, you're not saying anything to anybody. Fido. Bam, bam, bam.
What if the coyote murder gang just really does exist?
Yeah.
Right, that's the Occam's razor here.
Right, that's the Occam's razor.
Indeed. What if he... Yeah, and they killed the dog because it was just way too close to a coyote for their liking.
Well, I feel like this kind of then leads us to the murder car because you said that's got a coyote killer in there, right?
Allegedly, it has a killer for sure, and he was in fact cited as specifically being a member of the gang. So yeah, let's get to that one.
Murder car. It sounds like a new season of American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does. They're doing a take on John Carpenter's Christine.
That's funny. So the headline, and the reason it's Murder Car, the headline was Many See Mojave Murder Car. That's the actual headline, not one of my fun ones I come up with. So, or at least I think they're fun. I can't force you guys to agree, I guess. So anyway, 1917. There's a man named Scott, and he works at the Glenconda mine in Arizona. One day he walks out of the mine, and he says, you know what? It's Friday the 13th. I can't work today. And I'm not paraphrasing. That is a quote in the newspaper. The man says, it's Friday the 13th. I can't work today. He hops in his car. He picks up a friend named Chapman, and they drive 40 miles, first to a tailor. Then they get in an accident with a family of 4. The car limps to the garage. The friend pays for the car repairs. And then afterwards, while the friend is driving the car, Scott puts a gun in his ear and blows his brains out. So,
jeez.
Here's what I want to ask you guys. This
was
is
it
insane.
over the tailoring of their suit?
Right. This is insane, right? Imagine you're riding as a passenger in the front seat of a car. You're zipping through the desert at about 45 miles an hour. No seatbelts because those had not been invented yet in 1917.
Wait, what year are we again?
1917. So here's my question for you. And again, remember, no seatbelts. How pissed off at a driver do you have to be willing to put a bullet in his brain while you're the passenger and he's driving and you don't have a seatbelt on? And pretty pissed off, but then what if I tell you that this driver just agreed to go on a road trip with you on a whim, bought you a new bespoke suit, paid for the car repairs when your idiot ass crashed the car? This sounds like essentially the best new friend ever. And you're going to blow his brains out while you're the passenger and, like, very likely won't survive the crash? I mean, it boggles the mind.
It sounds like he was just done with his sugar daddy or something and just had a very sudden desire to end that relationship.
Or maybe he was like, you know what? This has been the most perfect day. It's the happiest I'll ever be. I'm going to murder-suicide us by killing you while you're driving, and I'm going to fly out the windshield and get splattered on the pavement.
Yeah?
Or I'm reminded of Pulp Fiction. Remember that scene where they're driving, and maybe what's the car owner who said he what's his name again? The guy who said I can't work.
Right, Scott. His last name's Scott.
So maybe Scott was like, hold this gun barrel to your ear. Do you hear the sound of the ocean? And they hit a bump or something.
So accidental.
I'm wondering if it was like they hit a bump and he was fooling around with his gun, saying like, "Oh my God, it's Friday the 13th. We shouldn't have a gun in here because that's dangerous." And then they just hit a.
So, Chris, to your point about the possible accidental nature of this. After killing Chapman, Scott basically disappears for a full night and a day, and then more or less wanders into Baghdad and has like a cup of coffee, and then takes off for another nearby town called Amboy. And when he gets to Amboy, he starts asking people directions, and it specifically says that he seems so like distraught and nervous and beside himself that one of the workers in Amboy actually says to him, "Hey man, it's okay, like relax. Nobody is going to hurt you." Like,
okay, I have a few more explanations now that I know that he was terrified.
Yeah.
There was a ghost in the car sitting between them, and he tried to shoot at it.
Oh my god!
And actually, probably the best explanation is Coyote Murder Gang.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There was obviously a third man in the car.
Yes.
And was like, if you don't pull that trigger, I'm going to blow your brains out. And that happened. Hell, they might have had to swerve. Like, why'd you get in that accident with that 4-person family? We had to swerve to avoid the Coyote Murder Gang.
Yes, or maybe Scott was
explanation in this town.
Maybe the Scott was in fact a member of the Coyote Murder Gang, and he picked up the rest of the gang who was in the back of the car, killed the driver because they didn't like Scott anymore. Maybe this was how they're going to whack him too. And then when he didn't die, they're like, "Well, we're going to pin this murder on you," and they ditch.
It's no wonder that this town is like a tree now.
I also now wonder, was the Coyote Murder Gang on that train with those other guys? Was that the 4 people they saw? Maybe they're responsible for all of these.
You know, it's a great question because honestly, all of these stories happen within 2 years of each other.
There you go.
I don't know if there's a police code for like, we don't know what the fuck's happening here, so let's make something up. But it seems to be that in San Bernardino County, in Baghdad, in the Mojave Desert out here, anytime there's something kind of unexplained, an unidentified corpse with a smashed skull, murdered animals, guys
that know the 385.
Right, 385 means let's just blame it on the Coyote Murder Gang and be done with it.
Yeah, Desert Boogeyman, case closed.
Exactly. Beetlejuice of Baghdad. Yep.
So wait, Zevon, what ultimately made this town disappear? Because obviously we've got all these terrible
That's
events happening. What did it I mean, this is 1970 to 1921. Did they disappear like a couple years later?
So 1917 was probably the absolute apex of the town. They built a hotel. They had a post office. Everything was like rip-roaring for just a second. Because in 1918, the town burnt almost completely down. Maybe just a quick bit of divine retribution for just the willy-nilly murders that had been happening over the few years prior. But they never really recovered from the fire. They recovered a little bit. They limped their way back, especially in 1928 when they built Route 66, the mother road, because that went right through Baghdad. So they started to get some traffic again. Everything looked like it was maybe going to be okay. And then you hit the 1930 and the mines dry up. And now, I mean, the two things driving the town was mining and railroads, which is the story in most of the towns, these desert towns we look at. Both the mines and the railroads kind of trick people into thinking that their Nowheresville is a real place.
Right.
The mines dry up and the people just start to bleed away, and until right about in 1973, there's maybe at most 20 like hardy. I mean, it's not, they call them hardy souls, but they're probably more like desperate souls with nowhere to turn. There's about 20 people left in 1973 when they build the I-40, which bypasses Baghdad. So now you don't even have to go through town on your historical America trip down Route 66. And then it dies completely.
Do you think these last couple people living here are like, nope, not going to move? Or like, please help us.
Like, don't have the resources to survive the trip out of the desert. I think the latter.
Yeah.
Okay. Sadly. And then so almost immediately as those last few people trickle out, vandals come and destroy most of the remaining structures until by 1991 they are intentionally razed to the ground. So whatever was left of these desecrated last few buildings got burned to ash on purpose in 1991, and that is why there is only one tree remaining.
Whoa. So they literally just scorched the earth. They were just like, let's just be done with this. Never again.
Yeah.
And specifically a vampire tree.
Yeah, specifically a vampire tree, which, by the way, they were planted by the railroads because they would survive, and they made a pretty good sound barrier for when the really loud trains were pulling into town.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You almost want to call this episode Insane's Trains and Automobiles.
I like that.
Somebody write that down.
We got it recorded.
Insane's. Oh, right.
Sorry, can someone take notes? We should remember some of this.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Yeah. Well, I'm on top of my game. That's good. All right. Well, hey, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, your friendship and support and just your conversation, your wonderful stories, just getting to hang with you and be around you anytime, but especially during this time when we're all kind of alone, not by choice. I mean, it's just a real treat to get to be with you. So thank you for being here and sharing so many wonderful tales and times with us.
Thank you, baby.
The pleasure's all mine, I assure you. Well, that's our show for Sean Christensen, Adam Volrich, and of course, the imitable Chris Peckover. I'm Zevon Odelberg, and this has been Kinda Murdery.
This is Kinda Murdery, Ghost Towns of the Mojave Desert, presented by Criminal Content. You can find us online at kindamurdery.com and on all social media at kindamurdery. Email us at contact@kindamurdery.com. Listen to us on all your favorite podcasting apps: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Google, and more. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends about the show.